Hey there everyone, it's me, Jeff, your tabletop technician here in the Dice Tower. And yeah, you might be sitting there right now saying, hey man, like, you know, where you been and stuff? Well, yes, I have been away for a bit. In fact, ever since my last review of Lunar Rush here on the channel, I vanished for 2 months to finish the construction of this, our new traditional log cabin located on the edge of the Blue Ridge Mountains in beautiful Shenandoah, Virginia. But I'm not here to talk about that today. I might sneak that into a board game breakfast video later on. No, today I'm going to talk about my favorite games from 2023, which is perhaps a little ironic because I haven't gotten to play that many games from 2023 because of, well, reasons I've already mentioned. And it's even slightly worse because if you look below my lovely Christmas tree here, you'll see a slew of games that came out this year that clearly I have that I still haven't even gotten to play. Yeah, they're just kind of sitting there, as little gifts to myself to eventually play when I finally have the time. But hey, thanks to special events like the Dice Tower Retreat and a few conventions I've made it to this year, I have gotten to sneak in a fair amount of 2023 games, and I will now rank for you my top 10 games from this year. Now, I'm going to skip a lot of descriptions or any kind of a teach, since you've probably heard of a lot of these already, especially from the recent top 10s of the Winter Spectacular, which this video was supposed to be a part of, but I kind of didn't follow directions, and I made this way too long. Yeah, sorry about that. However, that works in my favor because Mike Licio had a game in his top 10 that I thought was actually much older, so I got to do a quick little edit and sneak that game onto this list where, frankly, it belonged all along. Anyways, enough of the housekeeping, let's get to it. Number 10 on my list is Queen by Midnight by Darrington Press. Now, right away, this is a game that I don't think has made a lot of waves in the hobby yet, so I'm going to break my rules already and tell you just a little bit about this. I didn't know anything about it myself until a friend of a friend introduced me to it at my first ever Gen Con experience this year. This is a deck-building brawler game with kind of a theme of everyone playing adult princesses trying to duke it out to take the throne by the stroke of midnight. This is a very well produced game. It has this beautiful clock, dice tower, and market display that sits in the middle of the table. Looks fantastic. A lot of dark tones, a lot of, again, very sort of an adult theme. I do love deck building games. You're going to hear that maybe a couple times more in this video. But I'm not a big fan of brawling games. Those sort of take that just, punching each other kind of themes, which again, you're going to hear that a little bit more in this video. However, though, as I mentioned, the production is fantastic. This game looks really interesting. It's a fairly straightforward teach, even though there are asymmetric abilities between all the different players. Each princess functions a little different than the others, but still not that hard to kind of explain to everyone and get into a game fairly quickly. Also, there is an element of this game that I really enjoy, and that is that most of your deck building games will have a common market you can buy cards from, and that is prevalent here as well. But each player also has their own armory market of cards that only they can purchase from, and those are what sort of set up the asymmetric abilities of your princess. So yeah, a really neat game, a neat theme, something you don't see all that often. I got a chance to play this at the retreat later and was really surprised by it. Now, what I don't like about this is that there is player elimination. They kind of tried to work around this a little bit with this sort of a loyalty system that I'm not sure works that well. So there is that to contend with. It's also, as deck builders go, it's very easy to bloat your deck. It's not very easy to get rid of cards. Once they get in your deck, you can get yourself into a situation where you got a lot of cards, but no power, no money left to be able to actually play them. So again, there's that. And it is a brawler game, so there is going to be that take that element. If that's not really your speed, you may not find something here that you really enjoy. But I've had an interesting time with this. I actually got a copy of it from Darrington Press, which I'm hoping to review here on the channel pretty soon. My number 10, Queen by Midnight. All right, number 9, a very common, very popular game you've heard of a lot this year. This is Earth, and if you haven't heard of Earth, then like the Earth itself, you might be covered in some rocks. What I like about this is that simultaneous play means that you are always doing something. It is always your turn, even if it's not your turn. It keeps things moving, keeps things fast-paced. There's a lot of variety in this game, especially at the startup. The different environment cards, the climate cards and such that come out means that every game is a good bit different. This is also a fantastic solo experience, possibly my #1 solo game of the year. Setup is not too bad for the solo experience, and it plays very quickly, which I really enjoy. Now, like a lot of these massive decks of cards games, there is a lot of luck of the draw, especially on that starting, that starting setup. There is a rule in here where you can kind of trash some cards that you don't want off the get-go, but still means that you can just get some really powerful cards early in the game, while other players kind of struggle to get their initial engine going. Also, the art in this game is fantastic. Everything looks great, but there's just a lot of sort of sterile green. You're putting out sort of wild plants, wild berries, and there just isn't that pop of color out of a game like maybe Meadow, but still a fantastic experience. Again, a great solo game. Earth, my #9. #8 is my first very big, very heavy game from 2023. And I'll tell you, I've only gotten to play this once, and I've only gotten to play it at 2-player, but it made such an impression on me that I really hope I can get to play this again at some point. This is Hegemony by Hegemonic Project Games. They might need to workshop that one just a little bit. But anyways, this is a game where each player, up to a total of 4, are representing different social classes in, I don't know, a country or a nation or a planet. You've got the working class, you've got the middle class, you've got the capitalist society, and if you're playing up to 4 players, 1 player will be the state, the government, if you will. And each of these factions interact very, very differently with each other, but there's this unique kind of push and pull where each faction needs the interactions of the others, but is also trying to get the most out of them. So, for example, the working class needs the capitalist class to build the businesses, to create the offices that they can work at. However, they of course are trying to fight for the highest wages from that capitalist group, which of course obviously the capitalist group doesn't want to pay. But as just reading through the rules of this, I was just fascinated at how thought out each of these different factions are, how differently they play, and again, how much they need each other, but how much they also want to try and get the most out of each other. So this was just a fascinating experience to play. Now, I will say that it is a daunting teach. It is a very difficult game to explain. I would even say it's stronger than Root as far as the difference in those factions and each faction's different rules. And because of that, it's very, very hard to get to the table. The other thing is that each player count unlocks different factions to play with. So in a 2-player game, you can only play as the working class and the capitalist class. And so again, I've only gotten to play one of these factions. I need to get this played at 4 players to even get to check out some of those other factions, and that's just going to be really, really hard to do. But a fascinating game, brilliantly designed, I would have to say, based on my initial experience, and I really do hope I can check this out some more. Hegemony, my #8. #7 on my list is from Devere. Now, if you ask me, Devere has been a bit all over the map lately. I thought Lacrimosa was okay, a little devoid of theme in some areas, but, a fine game. I didn't like Bamboo at all, and even this game was a bit polarizing for a lot of folks. This is 3-Ring Circus. Now, I really enjoy the puzzle of this game. I like the challenge of trying to build these 3 groups, these 3 rows of different performers to be able to accomplish different challenges throughout the game. I also like the engine building element of this. It is really interesting to try and decide, do you want to make your circus more nimble, able to move around the country a little quicker? Do you want to make it so that it generates a lot of extra profit for you? Or do you want to make it capable of bringing in those better performances, those better acts? And you can't do all of it. So you've really got to kind of decide in what direction do you want to move your circus while also trying to accomplish different goals. This area control element that you kind of run into with the different regions of the country is, again, a unique twist to the challenge. And this game really snowballs at you. At first, you think you have a lot of time. There's a Barnum and Bailey piece that kind of moves in a track around the country. And when it gets back to where it started, that's when the game ends. And at first, you think, oh, they've got plenty of space to go. I got all day to figure this out. And then you suddenly realize, no, I don't, as they start to jump over the pieces from other players. And suddenly the game wraps itself up very quickly at the end. And so that will catch you off guard, and again, just keeps this game feeling tense and challenging. I will agree with folks, especially Tom, who said that the theme here is very art deep. You don't really feel like you are running a circus. You don't feel like you have trapeze artists swinging around. You're just going to a city and performing with a 9 and a 10 and a 13. And I get it, and I really can't disagree with that, but the art is so good in this game. and the challenge is good enough in this game that it keeps me wanting to come back for more. So anyways, that is my number 7, a good puzzle challenging game, 3-Ring Circus. My number 6 is Rolling Heights by AEG. Now, I reviewed this here on the channel just a little while ago, and I did have some harsh criticisms of this game. I didn't like the fact that the setup of this is very complicated and very long-winded. You have all these different boards you have to set up. You have certain counts of each piece that you have to bring out. It takes forever to set the game up. I didn't like the fact that the pieces that you build into these buildings don't snap together. They don't hold tight. They're very easy to knock over. Also, because this is it's a dice chucker, although your dice are little meeples. That luck can feel a little bit too prevalent at times. You can feel like you just can't get anything going. Maybe all of your workers are just sort of, working steady, I think it's called, when they're laying on their side. So maybe they're all working, but they're not giving you very many resources to work with. And it can just feel like the game holds you back a little bit. It is also a game that I think takes way too long to play. But I still really like it. I've had a lot of fun playing this the number of times I've gotten it to the table already. This is a game that, especially as it grows, as you're getting into it, the table presence of this game really just starts to take off. It feels like a city builder as you have all these buildings, these skyscrapers of different lengths and size all over the board, and it just looks fantastic. You've got a lot of tough decisions to make, especially when you get later in the game and you have more than 10 workers. You can't use them all each turn. You have to kind of decide who's going to show up to work that day and who's going to take the day off. And it's that decision-making process that really just makes this game feel like a good puzzle. I also do like the variety of common goals and your private goals that you can work towards. So again, it just adds to that decision space. And listen, I've always been a fan of city builders. I've loved the very original SimCity. And so right away, this was a theme that was going to appeal to me, even if it had some setbacks and some limitations. But a really neat experience, a very fun game, maybe a bit too long, but something I'm looking forward to playing more of is Rolling Heights, my number 6. My number 5 is the game that I'm sneaking onto this list, courtesy of Mike DeLisio. This is Ostia. Now, this began delivering in December of 22, so a lot of folks didn't really get it or get to play it until 23, and that's the rule I'm playing by here. Now, this is by a Japanese publisher. I believe it's pronounced Ukibakoya, but I could be wrong on that. And as Mike has mentioned, this sort of uses a mancala system where you're picking up these little boats and moving them around a 6-sided space on your player board. Wherever you pick the boats up from is where you generate resources, and wherever you place the last boat is the action that you will trigger. Now, this was brought to the Dice Tower Retreat by Trey Lennox, a big fan of the Dice Tower. Really appreciated him bringing this, and I got to play it with Trey and Mike at the retreat, and I was pretty nervous going into this. Obviously, both of these gentlemen knew this game very well. The mancala system of this felt a little intimidating to me. They sort of emphasize the challenge of trying to make those actions really pay off for you, trying to get the most out of your turns, and that puzzle of, okay, I really need the resources here, but I need to take this action. What's the best way to set this up? And so I was pretty nervous going into this, but I had a pretty good play of it. And that's definitely a kudos to Trey and a good teach on this. I really enjoyed the puzzle of this game. I enjoyed that challenge. I also enjoy the engine building element of this. You can upgrade each of the actions that you can take. There's also some room for combos in this game. Not very often. You can't trigger that very often, but when you do, when you set up that really strong combo, it just feels very powerful. It makes you feel very clever. It makes you feel very accomplished when you have those big turns. There's also a lot of different paths to victory, and I also like the aspect where you could spend basically money to sort of charge an action. You could use money as an extra resource to get a little bit extra done on your turn. And so, I don't know, it all kind of clicked with me. I had a really good play, and I'm really looking forward to getting to play this again. I will say that those turns where you get a lot done, where you feel like you accomplished a whole lot, you will then spend the next several turns trying to set up that next big move. And you can have those moments where a player pulls off a really big turn and you kind of sit there and go, I'm going to get 2 boats and I'm going to move 1 space on a track, and that's all I get to do. And so that can kind of stress you out. That can make you feel like you're not doing well. There isn't a victory point track. You don't really know where you stand at any given moment, and I don't have a problem with that. But you can easily get yourself into a situation where you feel like you're just not getting anything done and you are lagging behind. You really just don't know how things are going to pan out until towards the end of the game. I'll also say that don't let the Mancala element of this game make you think that it's a very lighthearted, simple game. This game is a fairly decent challenge. It's only rated at maybe a high 2 in difficulty on BGG, but I wouldn't believe that, at least on your first play. Anyways, a great experience. It's not higher on my list because I only got to play it once, but I'm really looking forward to getting this when it comes back out for a reprint. My number 5, Ostia. Number 4 on this list is another deck building brawler game. This is Robot Quest Arena by Wise Wizard Games. You've probably heard about this one already in a couple of recent lists. This is a fantastic game where you are just representing these little robots and just duking it out on a big play area. I love the presentation of this game. It is a hoot to play. It is just a hilarious experience. You're just laughing and cutting up the whole time. Smacking your sister with a hammer never, ever gets old. And in this game, dying doesn't really hurt you. When your robot gets taken out, you just get to respawn on your next turn and get right back into the fight. Now, as a deck builder, I will say that it's a little hard to shed cards in this game. You kind of have to expect that you're going to finish the game with the same 10 starting cards that you had. You'll, of course, get to add to it, but you're going to have to try and make sure that you don't bloat that deck too much and just keep yourself pretty fast and efficient with laying down the damage. You can get ganged up on this game. Ask my daughter, who loves to go after her parents and then kind of gets a little flustered when we both start going back after her. But again, dying is not a big deal. And if you can kind of get your mind around that idea, you're just going to take some hits. And as long as you stay in the fight, you'll probably still do pretty well. Also, there are no rules in this game for more than 4 players. You can do 5 in a pinch, although there is rumor of an 11-player version coming to GameFound, I think, in 2024. And I can tell you right now, I will be picking that up. A fantastic game, my number 4, Robot Quest Arena. My number 3 on this list is the next and the last, as it happens to be, big, massive, heavy, challenging game. This is Voidfall by Mind Clash, designed by David Turczi. I'm not a huge fan of Mind Clash games. I think a lot of times they tend to be complex for the simple sake of complexity. The systems don't always feel as clean. They don't feel as thematic to me as maybe some games from notable designer Vital Lacerda. However, this one really clicked with me. I really enjoyed the challenge of trying to plot your optimal course through anywhere from maybe 4 to 5 turns that you're going to get in 3 different eras. You have different cards that you're playing. Each card's going to give you a maximum of 3 actions. If you get an objective card put together at the right time, you might be able to get yourself 4 actions, but most of the time you're only going to get to do 2. And so that challenge of how am I going to get through all the stuff I need to try and get through in maybe 5 turns in this whole round is the brain burner element of the game. And I really have had a lot of fun with it. There are a lot of options. There's a lot of different paths you can take. There's a lot of different things you're trying to score. The game does build pretty well. And so yeah, it really keeps you thinking, and I really enjoy that challenge. Now, I will say that AP can be an issue in this game for sure. Also, the setup time is ridiculous. I have played this 2 times already solo. Each time it took me an hour to set up the game, and I had to wait another day to even get to play. It took so long to get it set up that I couldn't even start to play. The rulebook is a challenge to get through, and I know that you can tell that they've tried to make it streamlined, but I still think it's a lot to get through. There is a rule book, there is a glossary booklet, then there's also the scenario booklet. And so you're trying to shuffle through these booklets frequently throughout the game. And it's a difficult game to teach and a difficult game to play. It's also not as flexible as I think Eclipse Second Dawn for the Galaxy is. You can do anything you want in each turn of Eclipse. And so you definitely kind of have that element of, God, I really wish I could do this in Voidfall, and I've already played those cards. I just can't do it. There's also deterministic combat in Voidfall. There's no rolling of dice, which means that you go into each fight knowing exactly what's going to happen, and that will certainly appeal to a lot of folks, even me, as I do tend to avoid games with a lot of just luck and chance. However, it also just tends to be a little lackluster. You don't get that excitement of rolling dice and just hoping that you're going to survive this wave of combat. Anyways, a big game, a game I'm actually hoping to review here on the channel a little later on. Voidfall, my number 3. Here we are at the final 2, and my number 2 is Raising Robots by Navu Games, if I recall. I got to play this at the Dice Tower Retreat. Camilla actually had a preview copy. Thank you very much for teaching us that game, Camilla. This is a game that is very similar in its appearance and its design to Wingspan. In fact, if you look at the player boards of those two games, they look very, very similar. But this is a sort of an engine building, tableau building game. You're trying to get these robots out. You're trying to trigger these various actions. You got a lot of different sources of points, and so a lot you're trying to get done. There's also an interesting element where the actions that you choose to play may provide additional power to those actions, which could benefit other players around the table, which is a unique system, I think, and it can also be a lot of fun, a lot of excitement when, you all flip over and reveal the actions you want to take, and all of a sudden you realize, oh, I'm going to get to do this even more than I thought I would. Now I get to do this, which I didn't think I was going to get to do, and it's awesome. I will say that beyond that, the game is a very heads-down experience. It's a very Euro game. You can kind of sit there for a few minutes just buried in your board, and then you get done, you go, okay, I'm finished. How the heck did you get 40 points? That's ridiculous. I want to know how you did that. Also, the rule book here isn't exactly fantastic. I feel like it leaves out some detailed explanations on some of the actions, and even every time that I've taught this, I kind of had to stop and go, oh, hang on, I think it lets you do this. Let me check. I don't remember. But a fun game. I think still a unique game, even though it's very similar to Wingspan, and quite the brain burner. My number 2, Raising Robots. And here we are, folks, at the end of another Top 10 video, at the end of another year. 2023 has certainly been a challenging year for myself and my family, and I did not think I was going to get to be that active out here on the channel, and instead I've got something like 35 videos out here from this year. So I want to take a quick moment. I want to thank Tom Vassell and all the folks there at the Dice Tower Studios. It has been a fantastic experience working with you folks, meeting with you folks throughout this year. A big thanks especially to Chris Yee. Chris has to watch all of my garbage before it goes up on the channel, and he has to kind of make sure that things are working and everything sounds right and all that kind of good stuff. So thank you, Chris, for all your support. And thanks to all of you, the audience. Listen, I do some crazy dumb stuff out here on the channel, and I've gotten some fantastic feedback and comments and support from folks, and it really does just keep me going. That positivity gives me the energy to put the next one together. So I want to thank all of you for watching, for commenting, all that kind of good stuff. Anyways, hey, number 1 on this list, my number 1 from 2023 is Life of the Amazonia. This is by Bad Comet. This is a bag building game, but it works a lot more like a deck builder because there is a discard pile. And so I've kind of described this as a love child between Altiplano and Cascadia. You've got different animals that you're putting out onto an environment that you're building, and those animals each have different scoring rewards based on how you arrange sort of all these different tokens and pieces out in your Amazon rainforest. This is a beautiful game. The production is just fantastic. I got to play this at the retreat with my good friends Katie and Greg of the Meeple Society, and we just had a great time. It's a beautiful game, a good challenge. There's a lot of different ways that you can kind of build your bag, and I've just had a lot of fun with it. I will say the only thing I can say against this game, which is why it's my number 1, is that the solo game feels a little too tight. I don't think you have as much flexibility in how you want to build your bag in the solo game. It just feels too short. You feel a little too rushed to try and get things done. Other than that, though, I've had a lot of fun playing this, and I cannot wait to play it again. My number 1, Life of the Amazonia. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a wonderful holiday experience with your family. I hope 2024 gets off to a great start for all of us, and I will see you again soon. Cheers. No jokes today, folks. I've got some celebrating to do.